There's another hearing in the Kohberger case, and the mystery only deepens.
Yeah, why are they deleting or ditching important information and not saving information? I don't understand.
And why are we only finding out about this the day before an important hearing? What happens when documents mysteriously go missing and then suddenly pop back up? I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
And today we have an attorney from Southern California, Yoli Medina. Yoli, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So today we are going to be talking about the hearing on the 23rd. And in my opinion, this seemed to come off as a big win for Ann Taylor.
Well, I don't know if it was a big win for anyone. It was certainly somewhat disorganized. Was that your take also, Yoli?
Yeah, it was disorganized in terms of how the material or data was kept or not kept, I should say. And only certain portions were kept, and it's not a good look.
So just as a little bit of background leading into this before we actually go to the hearing and take a look, Ann Taylor has, as we record this, two different outstanding motions to compel evidence, motion number 4 and motion number 5, and they go back quite a ways. So in preparation for the hearing, which is a major thing, one of the witnesses was not going to be able to appear, so there was a special hearing with just Detective Lawrence Maury of the Moscow Police Department. I don't know about you, Yoli, excuse me. He was somewhat reticent even about saying, what was your area of expertise. And Ann Taylor had to kind of drag it out of him. He does cell phone analysis and collection of video from around the community. So that's what he does.
It sounded like it. He said he had multiple roles, and she said, well, you covered the cell phone and the videos. Yeah.
So the thing starts out with a little bit of evasion and continues. Ann Taylor asked Maury about his training on cellular towers and providers by FBI cast members. CAST, of course, is the FBI acronym for Cellular Analysis Survey Team. So Ann Taylor asked about a report that Maury had looked at the day before the hearing. He found 6 or 7 items in a session log, and Maury only gave certain records to Ann Taylor the day before this hearing.
Something that I appreciated, well, maybe not appreciated because it's obviously a bad thing, but it was interesting seeing after Ann, we see time after time, I don't have these documents. Where are these documents? All these documents don't exist. And now all of a sudden we found some documents. It's a crazy turnaround. It's interesting to be able to see this unfold.
So yeah, and it's almost like they had to push. She had to push in order for them to actually look for stuff. And the push was the motion to compel. In other words, it doesn't sound like he was told any time before to look for these things.
The odd thing is that these motions to compel have been pending for quite some time, months really. And 2 reports, one of which was only turned over the day before this hearing.
That's not a good look.
The report that you wrote that I received today, when did you learn about those documents that exist according to that report?
The session log that I found from yesterday.
Why did you come to find them yesterday?
I was preparing for this hearing.
Okay. And those are things that existed for quite some time, is that correct?
They did.
And when you wrote about your work with CASBiz in May of 2023, did you document those items?
No.
Did you hear that? Did you document those items? No.
What? Why wouldn't he document them? I don't understand.
I don't understand that either. And the other thing, a lot of people rightly or wrongly accuse this judge of siding with the prosecution all the time. They say that he and prosecutor Bill Thompson are old buddies. Even the judge seemed a little bit miffed to be listening to this with these motions to compel out there for so long that this Detective Mowery, only looked into the files the day before the hearing.
It's not.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's almost like the dog ate his homework.
It's worse. And the judge is just like a tennis match. I mean, he was watching, then watching, and then watching. I mean, he was so intensely listening. So I hope, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go.
So let's look into the actual issues in this hearing. The Kohberger defense is focusing in this hearing on how law enforcement tracked Kohberger on the night of November 13th, 2022, the night of the murders, using his cell phone data. One of the keys is call data records, or what they call, you know, police like these acronyms, the CDR, which Maury had been asked to obtain. And Maury testified that he took CDRs from Kohberger's phone from that night and dropped them into the CAST software that breaks the digital records into a more detailed information format, including location and cell tower signals. So defense attorney Ann Taylor went on to question Maury about CAST data that had been in the Moscow PD files since December of 2022 and April 2023, specifically in preparation for the grand jury. But Officer Maury admitted he had forgotten about them until the day before this hearing, May 23rd of 2024.
What date were they created?
I believe one was in December, the other was in April.
December of what year?
22,
And April of what year?
23.
Could you tell who created those?
I could not.
How did you get those?
I was provided those via email.
By who?
I made balance of the FBI.
What did you do with those?
Gave them as soon as I realized that they were in my possession. I had contacted the prosecutor and gave them.
And that would be just yesterday, is that correct?
Yes.
What did you do with them prior to that time?
They were sent to me. I put them in a folder and I didn't do anything else with them. That's why I forgot them.
He put them in a folder and forgot them.
But it was provided to the grand jury, right?
Yes.
So it was part of the evidence they used in the grand jury,
Yes.
but he forgot about it.
He forgot about it. Yeah.
When the defense is asking for it.
Grand jury's not that important. I mean, come on now. Oh, wait a minute. They had scheduled a preliminary hearing, which was going to be public, and Bryan Kohberger's attorneys were going to be present. So they kind of went behind everybody's back and held this secret grand jury and indicted him. And oops, they forgot.
Makes me wonder why the grand jury, when Mr. Logston mentioned something about some grand jurors having issues, and I know that's private, the grand jury, but he kind of slipped it in there. It kind of makes me wonder if it had anything to do with the way the evidence was presented, because based on this, it just looks like it's just very, very sloppy.
One of the things that I was thinking is we talk a lot about like 52 terabytes, and it's just like, how much harder would have this information been to include in that if we're already having like a whole mess of unorganized information and this is what happens to slip by? And like I mentioned before, it's like we hear Ann saying we're missing stuff, we're missing stuff, we're missing stuff. And this works with her in the sense that, you know, I have all of this information, but I'm aware that there's things that I didn't get that are suddenly appearing the day before the hearing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's really kind of crazy. Maury was questioned about all of this, and Ann Taylor pressed him on this, but he was extremely hesitant to discuss just how long FBI data had been stored at the Moscow PD files before he came across them just the day before the hearing.
In the report that I just received today, there was reference to a loped bar file. What's that?
It's a file that I received from Agent Balance.
When did you receive that?
Honestly, the modification or the email, I honestly don't remember. Unfortunately, it was yesterday and I didn't put all this stuff together. So,
Okay. So that was one that you just found yesterday?
Yes.
Wow. And
Now go ahead.
it was in an email, right? From
Yeah.
the agent balance,
Yeah.
and he says, when did you receive this? And I think he said, I don't remember, but it was yesterday. I thought that's what he said. I don't know.
That's what it came across.
I thought he said that he had it in his email, and he just came across it yesterday being the day before this hearing on May 23rd, because he was told to prepare for the hearing.
Yeah, that could have sounded that way too. It sounded strange, and he was asked to look for it before the hearing. Why wasn't he asked to look for it when Anne was requesting information? That's
months and months ago. Yeah. That was the first thought that I think came across my mind. I mean, why? Well, you would think with 15 requests for discovery, 15 of them, at some point, maybe not the first one or the second one, but the third or fourth or whatever, you would think at some point the prosecution team would have really come down hard on the Moscow police and said, listen, go through your files and get this stuff, because in a couple of these hearings now, Prosecutor William Thompson has said, hey, we've given them everything that we have, and it's not our fault that we can't get this stuff from the FBI. We've had to go through this TUI process and everything else. And hey, these other agencies aren't cooperating. Well, Bill, why didn't you ask the Moscow Police Department to go through their files? Because maybe the stuff is all there already.
That's the first thing you think that you would ask, because, it was a long time ago. And I mean, I don't know what kind of cases where they would get FBI emails, but I would think that this would be a case where they would get FBI emails and they would want to check it to see if they have them, maybe in their junk box. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I get a million emails, and you go through them, you get rid of them, you junk them. We all get a lot of spam. Wouldn't you like to win this or whatever? But an email from the FBI, I think that would stand out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, yes, and I think a reasonable person would think that too, that an email from the FBI would stand out.
I feel like a hypocrite because my email is a completely disorganized mess, and to the point where I had to have a separate email just to talk to Andrew so that way I can actually catch the things he sends me. But you would think that
I'm so special. I have my own special email.
But it's like, I don't know. Obviously, things are different when you're not in a tech-related job, but file organization is really important, and you would think that, I mean, I don't know what kind of technological training the police go through, and I would be surprised if it was this in-depth, but if you're getting emails corresponding to certain cases, you would think that you open up folders and you put them in certain folders and organize things.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at it myself, and I'm a techie, but you're handling evidence.
You're also not cataloging evidence.
Yeah.
You're not, so there's just could be these random emails out there on these officers, in these officers' emails inboxes that pertain to the case, and they're just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially where there have been so many requests for information, especially in a case that, have we gotten so far into the forest that we don't see the trees? That this case is about 4 young people that were brutally murdered in the middle of the night back in November of 2022. And shouldn't this be the top of the pile in Moscow police? This isn't, I imagine that, and I don't know, but I did live in a college town for a while. I would imagine that the police have, drinking complaints, kids being rowdy coming out of the bar, DWIs, assault and batteries. I mean, I used to be a reporter and read the police blotter in the morning, and I did live in a college town for a while. So my limited experience of life would tell me that these are the general kinds of things I would think that a college town police department would deal with. But shouldn't this stand above all this? Shouldn't this be number one priority? Shouldn't one of the top detectives on the case be, keeping his eye out for this stuff? Is it possible that it's just got lost, like Lainey loses my emails?
You would think that that's what would happen, and I'm just it's baffling as to how. I think the judge is baffled too. I don't know. It's baffling how this could happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of more looks into the hearing. Maury was called on to explain how he analyzed phone records using a data visualization program. It's called CastViz, preparing information for the grand jury. Under Taylor's questions, Maury acknowledged that he did not save his work. Again, I mean, you don't look for the emails, you don't save your work. But when he was asked by prosecutor Ashley Jennings, he said, well, after all, his work analysis could be recreated later.
You were just speaking with the prosecutor about the images from Wendy.com. And I thought you didn't preserve anything or go back and look at anything during your investigation. Did I misunderstand that?
So yesterday when I was directed by the prosecutor.
Okay, so yesterday the prosecutor said, go look for these things.
Yes.
But before that, you and other.
I just stopped it. Did you hear that? Yesterday, this hearing has been pending for how long? And yesterday, the prosecutor called and said,
Okay.
hey, you want to take a look for this?
That is bad.
Why am I laughing? It's not funny.
It's
It's a
bad.
disaster.
It's bad because, I think Bill Thompson has an obligation when there's a request for discovery. He has to tell them at that time, you need to go look for this. And he's been saying the whole time, we don't have it, we don't have it. But did he ever tell anybody to go look for it? Is he just saying that they don't have it just because, I don't know, nobody's looked for it and this is all we have? This is all we were able to do.
I hate to say it, but you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like Mo and Larry telling Curly, hey, we got a trial tomorrow. Let's go check the file.
Right? Yeah, let's go check the file. And it's actually just a hearing and they don't know it's a trial. I had, oh my God.
Let's finish this up.
Investigators decided not to. Did I get that right?
With the information that we were given, we were told that they were doing a screenshot for the day, if I remember right, the parameters of. We did not grab those because they were not didn't see that they would be relevant.
So what he's talking about here is a website called windy.com, which I don't know. I've never heard about it, but I guess windy.com is a website that's known for telling you wind directions. If you own a yacht and you want to go out in the harbor, you go into windy.com and it'll, Yola, you're there on the West Coast. I can find out what the wind is like over there. You're on the East Coast. If you're coming to visit me and I'm taking you out on my yacht, I can check the wind conditions here. That's what I initially thought it was. But apparently, and in a second, we're going to see, Windy also does videos of various roads. So this is actually a screenshot that our friend Forensic Frenzy took and sent to me because I was talking to her in prep for this show. This is actually a screenshot from the website Windy, www.windy.com. And she went in and she got these several screenshots of Moscow, Idaho, dating back to November. If you can see the date, I don't know if you can see my little mouse there, but the date here is November 24th of 2022. So if we'd had time, we could have gone back to the 13th. But look, here's a screenshot of Stadium Drive, Moscow, Idaho. Here's US 95 in Moscow, Idaho. Here's US 95 6th Street in Moscow. And another one, I guess, of US 95 6th Street. Now, the prosecutor said he had only done day shots, and we have a day shot there. But look at this. Forensic was able to pull up some night shots, too. So where he said he was only able to get day shots, our forensic investigator, our in-house forensic expert, got some night shots. So that's what's out there.
Oh.
And you would think that's something that's showing on these streets when the cars are such a crucial point in this. Is it a 2011 Elantra? Is it a 2015 Elantra? Having road videos, photography, screenshots, even anything, you would think could be considered relevant information. And maybe they didn't gain anything and file it away because of that. But just because you didn't see the car doesn't mean that it's not relevant.
Right. And was there a reason given why he couldn't get the evening video? He was
No.
only able to...
No, it only came up really briefly in the hearing. I mean, you watched the hearing, and I didn't get it the first time through. I had to go back and listen to it again.
Yeah, the
And-
sound is hard to hear.
The sound was terrible. The sound
I
was
thought-
really,
yeah, I was listening to it on my headphones
yeah.
when the first time, and when they were talking about Wendy.com, I thought they said Wendy's.
So did
I'm like, was there a Wendy's involved? Maybe it was in a Jack in the Box. It was, I was off on a completely
Did they
different.
call out for those big square burgers at Wendy's?
Oh, I love
'Cause those-
Wendy's.
You like Wendy's?
I love Wendy's.
And,
Yeah,
well,
I
they're-
was so confused.
the Wendy's in my town here went out of business. I'm sorry. I don't know how a Wendy's goes out of business.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that I didn't know what they were talking about, so I had to go back and listen to it a couple of times. And then when I figured out that it's a website that, like I went through the thing about our yachts before, that it was just that. But no, you can get these screenshots, and these are just the couple that were dug up this morning. Thank you, Forensic. Briefly. And if you spend more time, which, doing a major investigation, I guess you can come up with a lot more. But so what happened, according to the testimony by Detective Maury, was that they went through and they downloaded a bunch of these, and there were, quote unquote, none of relevance. So what's the quote? They didn't preserve them. I think that was the quote. They just
Yeah, they didn't save them or something.
But
like
if I'm the defense attorney, I'm saying, wait a minute, you were scanning the streets of Moscow, Idaho, and you didn't see him? That's relevant to me. So why didn't you turn that stuff over? I guess at one point he said they did turn it over, but maybe it's in the 51 terabytes and she hasn't found it yet, which I would certainly not blame her.
I was going to say, what's another 50 terabytes of video?
Yeah. So,
yeah, and then not saving it, is that like deleting it? I mean, because if you don't save it, it's not there anymore. And you were once looking at it as a part of your investigation, but you didn't save it. So I would think he would have an obligation to save it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's part of his investigation.
Especially if it's showing no car, and that's exculpatory. Now, it can obviously be argued, well, they didn't video every single inch of every single street that night. So how could they see? But still, under Brady, by the benefit of the doubt, if it's exculpatory and if it's in their possession, they have a legal obligation to turn it over. So anyhow, Maury discussed his creation of visual records for the grand jury. And Maury, again, was deliberate on the stand and fought back with Taylor to acknowledge that in preparation of the video evidence that was shown to the grand jury to obtain Bryan Kohberger's indictment, he didn't create what's called session logs to, document what he was doing. And he appeared unprepared when Ann Taylor asked why.
Would you agree I can't see what you did without your session log? Can't examine what you did without your session log?
Is there to create the visualizations for the exhibits? That's what I used as this.
But I can't see what you did. Is that right?
Quiet.
Right?
Silence.
No.
More silence.
No, it's not right, or no, I can't see what you did.
You cannot.
So
Secrecy.
don't show your work. I mean, if a kid did that on a math exam and didn't show his work, he'd be out of there. So
I'm curious as to what exactly the session log is, because if they're talking about an instance of being on a computer, that should be something that's recorded and that you would probably have to go out of your way to delete. When I imagine a session log, I'm not entirely sure if this is necessarily what they're referring to, but when you go onto the computer, there's ways that you can see every action that a user is performing. So if that's what they're referring to, the fact that it doesn't exist is a little strange, in my opinion.
I think it has to do more with this Cast Viz software.
Mhm.
The Cast Viz software, it's a special thing that when you log into that software, you keep a log. But I think what you just said, Lainey, I think you outsmarted these guys. I think, for him, I mean, you're an engineering person, engineering and you know software better than anybody else that I know anyhow. And I know a lot of people. I mean, come on, I have a few friends. I mean, software. And I would think what you said is correct.
Even if it's like an external, like even if they're going into a website, there should be a record of their actions on the website.
So what you're saying is it's somewhat suspect that they don't have these quote unquote session logs.
It's weird that it wouldn't be available.
So would it be that, like, would he have to log in with his credentials? I'm just wondering how that works. If each person has.
So it's like when I think of a session log, for example, I think of every time we log into our Windows computer, when you open a file and you're looking through that file, you edit a file, you don't see it directly, but the way that computers work, someone who has admin privileges can see all the computers on the network, basically. So if you're at a big police department, you have maybe 10 computers, they all have certain, I mean, depending on their IT department, maybe their IT department is non-existent, who knows? But usually the account you get at a business computer is not the admin. The admin is able to see what's happening. And in cybersecurity, that's one of the things you're looking for is you're going on all the computers on the network and you're seeing if there's any suspicious behavior, and you can actually go in and see when something's edited, and you can see like what was changed and stuff like that. So all of our computers are doing that. And when you go on websites, they have similar systems, but it's not something that we actively see on the surface unless you know what you're doing and go in to the terminal.
Could it be that when you log out, it might ask you, do you want to save your changes? And he said no.
I'm wondering if he's using a certain software, if maybe they can access it, and because as you know, containing legal information, maybe there's a way to do it that you're tracking all of your movements more specifically, and maybe when you log in you have the option to select yes or no. I don't know, because I think of like encrypted stuff, so maybe it's something that either records the log and encrypts it, or it's like a VPN and he gets rid of everything. So I don't know.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of odd. It's really very odd that they did this work on the computer, and they can't really document it. There's just a lot of questions. I think that this hearing raised more questions than it answered. And remember, let's go back to the beginning where we pointed out that the context of the hearing we're looking at now was, this is just one witness to the hearing that's going to come up on the motion to compel evidence. So I don't know. If I'm a judge, I'm thinking, wow, how could it be that for months and months and months, a year really, for some of these discovery requests, we've been hearing, well, we don't have the evidence. We don't have the evidence. If I'm a judge, I'm thinking, why didn't you, really, call these guys before? And I'm thinking, why not call the police into the court? Call the police chief, call Detective Maury, call all the people that were involved in this case, and I don't like this term, but read them the riot act.
Yeah. Read
them the riot act and say, listen, guys, come here. This is a big case. Go back to your office, go through your drawers, go through your emails, go through your files, go through everything, and come on, guys, let's get it together. I don't know. What would you do if you were the judge, Yoli?
I would sanction the prosecution, but I guess there would have to be a request for sanctions. I mean, that's how it works in civil. So, if this were to happen and and through a deposition or something, I found out that they only look for the documents the day before the deposition, definitely, if I was trying to compel, I would move for sanctions. I would file a motion for sanctions because they didn't do a good faith search when they were asked initially to look for things, and then later when they're pressed and they have to because they're going in front of a judge or they're going for a deposition, then they produce them. And that's sort of like, and he's saying that he didn't look at any other time, and the question is why? Weren't you asked by the prosecution? But see, this isn't for sanctions. So I mean, I guess the next question for a motion for sanctions would be, were you ever asked by Mr. Thompson to look for this information, or anybody from his office before yesterday, before you were aware there was a hearing? And if Thompson never, or anybody from his office never really asked, look through everything, find everything, especially after all these requests, and that's pretty bad.
Well, and then the other thought I have is this: in the old days, I mean, I guess I'll date myself now and say, geez, if you ever watched the old Perry Mason shows or some of the old, movies, there's a mystery. Something happens, and there's a whole whodunit. Then they have the trial, and a mystery witness comes forward and solves the whole case. Or Barnaby Jones solves the whole case. That now, at this time in the 21st century, that's called a trial by ambush. And Yola, you and I and Lainey know this. And the rules of discovery have been promulgated and honed and revised and sharpened in the last 50 years to make us all provide stuff in advance. The courts have just become so busy and so bogged down that we as attorneys have been implored to share all of our evidence way in advance of the trial in accordance with what we call here a scheduling order. I think you call it something else in your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Now, for good cause, you can extend it, but there are deadlines. And by such and such a date, you've got to provide answers to interrogatories and videos, and So I'm wondering, this is in retrospect, in the last 50 years, a relatively new thing. Now, you're in a metropolitan area, Yoli. I'm in a somewhat metropolitan area. I'm wondering if in Idaho they still go by the trial by ambush idea, and they do wait until the week before trial. Oh, let's see, the trial's coming up next summer. Oh, we don't have to do anything. No, wait. Okay, the trial's been scheduled for June 15th of 2025. All right. And they wait until, June 1st of 2025 to start going through their file. Oh, yeah. Oh, we got this. This is really good. And I'm just wondering if this is the mindset.
It's like the Wild Wild West over there. I don't know. It's sort of like I've always had issues with the procedural part because it always seems so disorganized as to what's going on. So you might be right, Andrew. They might have the mindset of just, oh, well, the trials, we don't even have trial dates, so why do we need to do anything? You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean, and that's my question. I mean, I even know attorneys that have that attitude.
Oh.
I even know attorneys that have that attitude that somehow they'll get it in, they'll sneak it in at the last minute, and if you're comfy cozy with the local judge and you come up with some reason that you're not bringing this stuff in until trial. I'm just wondering if that's what the situation is here. I mean, what you mentioned sanctions, and sanctions are good in a civil case. I mean, I do civil cases, but in a criminal case, what good is it if the defendant's Sixth Amendment rights have been flushed down the toilet?
Yeah. See, I guess, yeah, it's different in civil, but I don't know what the remedy for, if there is even a remedy for this kind of conduct. And I say conduct not meaning that it could be just very sloppy, it could be intentional, who knows. But what does the judge do now that he knows that this is what's going on? He's going to have to grant her motions to compel. I mean, she's already gotten stuff. It's already been agreed that she should get this stuff. So what does he do? Grant it?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that that's what he has to do now. Yeah. I mean, if he doesn't do it, it could just be simple negligence. It could be inadvertence. It could be sloppiness. We all make mistakes. It might just be inadvertent. But I mean, yeah, at this point, I don't see how the judge can not grant all of the motions to compel now that we know that the police department has been asleep at the switch. And there's still time. That it's already been established. This thing isn't going to trial until at least March of 2025. So I would think that, yeah, grant all the motions to compel. Now, what does that do? Does that help? Is the police department still going to say, well, now, we admit we made a mistake. We admit that up until, up until May of 2024, where are we now? 2024, up until May 22nd of 2024, we made a mistake. We're sorry. We made it. Can't you see Bill Thompson making this excuse? Oh, we're sorry. We had all good faith intention and we were busy. This is quite a case. But
this is not the only case we have.
from now on, we're going to play it straight, Your Honor. And the judge there saying, oh, all right, they're there. We're sorry. I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do or how he's going to.
Well, time will tell.
Right.
Time will tell. Lainey, any closing thoughts before we head out of there?
I mean, it's been said a million times in this episode. It comes across as very sloppy. It's interesting seeing that there is more stuff. I am interested in seeing, I forget the exact term they use, like the logs that they said
Session
we
logs?
don't have.
Session
Yeah,
logs.
the session logs. Yeah, as someone interested in tech, I'm really curious as to what exactly they mean by that, because generally it's pretty accessible to see that someone entered something at a certain time and left, so, and how long they were active for. So I mean, I'm looking also forward to hearing what people have to say in the comments down below. Let us know what you think.
Let me ask you
Yeah,
a
I
question.
mean, yeah, and
Go
I'm
ahead.
not a tech person, so I like I said, when I first heard it, I thought they were talking about Wendy's.com. I'm like, what?
I have a
But-
question for our resident tech expert here, Lainey Law, and that is that I don't know what these session logs are either, but maybe one of the reasons they deleted it is get the dent ready. Suppose you're doing this search through all the records and the camera angles and the cell tower data. Suppose you're doing that and then you're distracted and you play a game or you order something on Amazon.com or you look at something maybe you shouldn't be looking at.
It's like,
And then
oops, I
you get
forgot.
back to the session log. Would all that stuff show in the session log?
Uh-oh.
On a computer, you can see the outbound, like what IP addresses you're accessing.
Does that explain how the session logs disappeared, Yoli?
You
Uh,
never know.
it's possible. I mean, they weren't saved. Did you save it? And he said, no, I took a screenshot or something like that.
Yeah.
But the terminology that they're using it's not familiar. So it's like, you have to keep trying to figure out. And then he's kind of muffled the witness in some areas of the testimony.
Insecure about his speech almost, where it's like he's not projecting his voice.
Yeah.
It's like,
All right, Yoli, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. Lainey was on vacation and you came in and you co-hosted. Thank you so much for doing that.
No problem.
We hope to see you a lot more on this channel. I want to remind all of our viewers to, this is your job. Like, subscribe. Please click the like button down below and subscribe and share it with all your friends. And as always, what?
I was going to say be kind.
Oh, I forgot. After this, it's hard to say that. But whether you're in the grocery store or the gas station, remember, please, to be kind, be respectful, and especially down in our comments, we have deleted a couple that people want to personalize. No, please, we don't need that. But we do hope that you will like and subscribe and comment. We do like to hear what you have to say, and we often will read your comments. But we're out of time. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.
What's that?
And that's that.
Yeah, that's that.
Oh, you're supposed to say that.
Oh, that's
Thank you, Yoli, for coming on.
So we all learned about windy.com. I never heard of it. Did you ever hear of windy.com?
No. There's cameras, but they're not through windy.com. There's cameras that you can look at in Moscow that CJ did, but they're not on windy.com. They're different.
I'm impressed with all the cameras that they have in like Idaho, because it's like we got windy.com, we got the grub truck. It's like we barely have a stable internet connection with Comcast. Like
I assume pretty much everywhere you go, you're on camera these days.
You have to assume that. I assume that all the time.
You know, I mean, I know from my ex-wife worked at Walmart. She was in mid-level management, and I actually went into the room where they watch every single thing. From the time you drive into the parking lot, go into the store, even if you're in some back, the sock aisle, you are on camera. There's a camera on you, and there's a screen, and there are people watching you the minute you walk in that store until the minute you drive out of there. And I think a lot of stores are that way anyhow.
even Walmart, when you go into the makeup section, you hear ding, and you see yourself pop up on the TV. They're like, we're watching.
But streets, you're driving up and down the street, you're driving up and down the highway, you're on camera the whole time. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
The government is watching. Don't do crime.
Right. But sometimes even if there is camera, they may catch you, but they can't identify you,
Yeah.